The United States and China, both countries without their leaders present at the ASEAN Summit this year, touched on issues of global and regional security in remarks to the gathering in Jakarta. Chinese Premier Li Qiang urged the meeting of ASEAN, Japanese and South Korean leaders to avoid picking sides and to oppose, quote, a new Cold War in dealing with conflict.
关键是我们大家要正视问题，消除误解，管控分歧。 正视问题才能解决问题。我们如果搞鸵鸟政策，只能使我们存在的问题越加严重。
Mr. Li also called for appropriate dispute resolution and for countries to oppose bloc confrontation. His statement comes against a backdrop of growing tensions in the South China Sea and as the Southeast Asian region becomes an increasingly critical arena for both China and the United States. Our US Vice President Kamala Harris reaffirmed Washington's commitment to the region in her address to the US-ASEAN Summit. She added that the collective vision the US and ASEAN have for the Indo-Pacific is in strong alignment.
The defense and deterrence commitments of the United States and our security presence in the Indo-Pacific help protect our homeland and ensure regional stability. It is therefore in our vital interest to promote a region that is open, interconnected, prosperous, secure, and resilient.
ASEAN Chair and Indonesian President Joko Widodo also addressed security, warning that progress and development in the region would be stalled by any disruption to peace. While speaking at the ASEAN +3 forum, he pressed for unity and highlighted the economic gains that have been made through cooperation.
Selama lebih dari 2 dekade, ASEAN +3 telah membuahkan banyak hasil dan menjadi motor pertumbuhan di kawasan. Namun, kita tidak boleh cepat berpuas diri. Kita harus terus membuka dan menciptakan peluang-peluang kerjasama baru di mana pembangunan ekonomi hijau jadi salah satu prioritas ke depan.
South Korea, Japan and China expressed similar sentiments of unity and friendship. The leaders are stressing the global importance of regional stability.
아세안 +3가 함께 힘을 모은다면 아세안은 물론 인도 태평양 지역과 전 세계의 자유, 평화, 번영에 기여할 것입니다. 오늘 이 자리가 그러한 비전에 한 걸음 다가서는 뜻깊은 장이 되기를 바랍니다.
世界が気候変動、国際保健の諸課題、またロシアによるウクライナ侵略といった複合的危機に直面し、また国際社会の構造的な変化が進む中、インド太平洋地域のエピセントラム・オブ・グロースであり続けるためには、法の支配に基づく自由で開かれた国際秩序を維持強化することが不可欠です。
我们中国人讲一个篱笆三个桩，一个好汉三个帮。越是遇到困难的时候，越是需要大家抱团取暖，团结协作。我们纵观国际上各种多边合作机制，本质上都是在建立和扩大各自的朋友圈。
Japan's Prime Minister, meanwhile, reportedly spoke briefly to the Chinese Premier on the sidelines of the summit and laid out Tokyo's views on the release of treated water from the Fukushima nuclear plant. Beijing recently banned Japanese seafood and suspended aquatic imports, a move that triggered strong protests from Tokyo. And Chani Bhavani joins us live from the ASEAN Summit in Jakarta. For more details, China US Vice President Kamala Harris announcing the establishment of a new US-ASEAN Center in Washington today. What's behind that move and what might it mean for relations between the US and the region?
That's right. US Vice President Kamala Harris very much announcing the the ASEAN Center in Washington earlier today, and she said that the center will serve as a key hub for ASEAN's engagements with the U.S. Now, a fact sheet on the U.S. mission to ASEAN's website stated that activities at the center could include facilitating official US-ASEAN engagements for further cooperation. It could also arrange cultural and educational activities, facilitate capacity-building programs, and conducting research to support and elevate the work being done by the US-ASEAN Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Now, it's also worth noting that despite US President Joe Biden's absence, a statement on the website saying that VP Harris's attendance here reaffirming the U.S.'s commitment to ASEAN centrality as well as its commitment to the region. Now, there's one more thing worth noting, and that is that the Biden-Harris administration has made a request for an unprecedented $1.2 billion in their budget, in their 2024 budget, for economic security and development assistance for Southeast Asia. Now, this is all on top of $90 million for engagement solely with ASEAN. So certainly lots of moves there to show the U.S.'s commitment to the region.
Chani, moves there to show commitment, but meanwhile, you have the U.S. President, Joe Biden, and the Chinese President, Xi Jinping, both missing from this particular summit. Has there been any reaction on the ground where you are?
Well, over here in Jakarta, it appears to be business as usual at the ASEAN Summit. And as you mentioned, of course, both nations sending their deputies instead of their leaders. Now, it also appears that both deputies doing all that they can to reaffirm their commitment to the region and to show how important, or rather to demonstrate how important the region is to them as well. As we talked about it earlier, VP Harris announcing a center in Washington for ASEAN. And over here, we have Premier Li Qiang talking and bringing to the forefront ASEAN and China's economic cooperation and how strong it has been. He said that ASEAN and China have been each other's top trading partners for 3 years running, so certainly putting a spotlight on that. No mention of the controversial map by Beijing that was released not so long ago.
Thanks for that. Chani Bhavani live was there from Jakarta.
Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong is calling for the United States and China to, quote, show leadership in addressing global issues. Now, that's as geopolitics and tensions are in the way of global cooperation. PM Lee made the comments on the second day of the ASEAN Summit. And he stressed that the US-China relation was of direct concern to ASEAN as it could easily stoke existing flashpoints in the region. PM Lee adds that it is crucial that there is dialogue between the two sides in building trust and to strive for greater cooperation. He says it's also important to maintain the peace and stability in the ASEAN region. PM Lee also thanked Japan and China for upgrading relations through the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. He welcomed South Korea's interest to establish this partnership with ASEAN next year. Mr. Lee proposed new areas of cooperation as well with all three countries. And these include emerging areas like the green economy and cybersecurity. He also suggested improving connectivity with China and Japan to boost people-to-people ties. PM Lee proposed an upgrade as well in existing partnerships, such as the ASEAN-China Free Trade Area. At the same time, PM Lee also spoke at the ASEAN +3 summit, which includes Japan, Korea and China, and he stressed that the grouping's role in driving regional economic recovery and growth and preparing for future challenges. And he highlighted three potential areas there, and these include enhancing the region's resilience and strengthening its supply chain. PM Lee says that this can be achieved by boosting existing efforts, such as the Emergency Rice Reserve. He also spoke about enhancing the region's capacity to combat public health threats and added that the grouping could step up cooperation in emerging areas like digital and green economies. PM Lee also spoke to US leaders during the ASEAN-US Summit. There he expressed ASEAN's hopes to expand people-to-people exchanges and deepen links with the United States. He acknowledged the United States' concerns about the lack of implementation of the 5-point consensus, which contains recommendations in addressing the situation in Myanmar. He reassured that ASEAN will work with the US and other external partners to urge the Myanmar military authorities to fully implement the 5-point consensus.